So, welcome to today's class. Today I'm going to talk about sourcing. As you all know, the name sourcing means where something is coming from. So basically in procurement, you're supposed to source from suppliers. So basically sourcing is the process that allows you to identify your suppliers and try to develop those suppliers. So by definition, sourcing refers to the process of identifying, selecting and developing your suppliers. And these suppliers, when you are selecting them, you must ensure those suppliers are able to give you the right source of material. So remember, material is very critical in that organization. So the supplier that will give you the right source is very critical in your organization. The other thing is the supplier will be able to give you the right quantity. Quantity in this sense are the units that the supplier is going to deliver to your organization. Therefore, a supplier must ensure if you order 10 pieces, the supplier will be able to give you the 10 pieces. Failure to do that, then it means that supplier is not a straightforward supplier. The other thing is the right time. The supplier must give you the products when you need them, when the customer needs those products. Failure to do that, then you are supposed to drop that supplier. And the other important thing is that that supplier must be able to give you the products at the agreed price. Price in this sense is the value of the items you have ordered for. The other thing, after doing all that, that supplier is able to honor the commitment without much follow-up. So that supplier must be self-driven. You are not supposed to do some follow-up to that supplier. So what are some of the factors you need to consider when you're looking at the right source or supplier appraisal? The first thing that you must consider is the geographical location. And when you talk about geographical location, this is the place where the supplier is coming from. So when you're choosing a supplier, you need to consider the cost of transportation and the lead time. So that supplier that you're choosing must be a supplier that is near your location. This is because you don't want to have issues of extra handling costs. Or in the event we have emergencies in place, sometimes it becomes difficult when you are depending on supplier who comes from far. For example, you're in Nairobi and you have a supplier who is coming from Mombasa. So that will become very challenging because the time you are ordering those items, then it means the supplier is not going to ensure you reach the goods reach on time. The other thing that you need to consider is the reserve production facility. And when you talk about the production facilities, these are the facilities from the supplier. Is the supplier able to ensure capacity when it comes to production of the materials that you want? And reserve facilities, basically a good organization must visit the supplier and ensure the supplier has all the facilities that are required for that particular procurement or for that delivery. The other thing is the credit and financial analysis of the supplier. So remember, you are in business, and once you are in business, sometimes you don't have the money in place. And this is a supplier that gives you credit is a very good supplier. And that means at the end of the day, the supplier is able to consider your financial insufficient sometimes. And that also will allow the supplier to support you when you are doing business. Then therefore you need to consider a supplier who has a sound financial position. The other factor that you need to consider is the technological development of the supplier. Remember, we're in the era of technology, and a supplier that is technological viable is a very good supplier. This is a supplier that is able to go with the trend, to go with the innovations, the inventions and the discovery. So this is a supplier that is trendy, a supplier that is able to go in line with the current technology. The other thing is the size of the supplier firm. So when you're choosing a supplier, it is always natural to choose large firms. This is because large firms have a better facility as compared to the smaller firms and the medium-sized firms. So therefore the purchasing department must consider or must weigh the relative merits and demerits of the different sizes of the organizations before choosing the prospective supplier. The other important factor is the labor relationship of the supplier. A supplier that relates with the employees well is a very good supplier. So that supplier must be able to have a cordial relationship and a very harmonious relationship with the employees. And this will allow the employees to have a morale And once they increase their morale, then it means at the end of the day, they are going to deliver. The other thing about labor relationship, that supplier is able to pay the employees on time. Once you pay your employees on time, issues to do with strikes, government conflicts, and what have you will be reduced. The other thing that I'm going to talk about today is the process of sourcing. So what is sourcing? We have already identified, we have already defined the sourcing. Now we need to understand the process of sourcing. So one step that we need to understand is that we identify and reevaluate the needs of the organization. That is the first step. We must identify the needs of the organization. For example, the user department, the people who are using the items must do what is called raise up requisition note to ensure that we have a need in that organization. Once that need is identified, the next step is to define and evaluate the user's requirement. You evaluate basically depending on the various requisitions that you've received from the different departments. Once you evaluate that comes from the user departments, that takes us to the next step. And the next step is to decide to make or buy. So first of all, you need to do an analysis of the items that you want to buy. If you're able to make those items, then you can go ahead and make the items. Sometimes you can decide to do what is called buying. So basically, before you go ahead and locate your suppliers, it is very important for you to decide to make or to buy the items. The other step is the procuring department decides to buy, then it will identify the type of purchase. So once you want to buy, then you will identify the method that you are going to use to purchase those items. Once you identify that method, the other thing that is very important is to do what is called a market analysis. So conducting a market analysis basically is you are going outside there to ensure that you do some analysis of your suppliers and to ensure the right source that you are going to source from your suppliers. The other thing that you need to understand is to identify the possible suppliers and conduct what is called a pre-screen of the possible suppliers. Once you've done your analysis, already you know your suppliers. So what you are going to do, therefore, you are going to analyze your suppliers and come up with as many suppliers as possible for that item. And this happens basically during tendering and basically evaluation of the various suppliers. And because the suppliers are many, you're supposed to choose at least 2 to 3 suppliers who are able to meet your demand. The other important step is to choose the possible and the right suppliers among the list. So it is always recommended for an organization that wants to choose suppliers, you're supposed to choose at least 3 suppliers. And this will allow you, in the event one supplier refuses to bring the items, you can always go to the next option. The other thing is the delivery of the products and performance of service. Once you agree with your suppliers, the one that you've chosen, the next step is to deliver the products to your organization. So basically, after delivering the products to your organization, the supplier will ensure that the products are in good conditions. Basically, you'll do some inspection here. Once the goods are in good condition, then the last step is to pay that supplier. So it's always important. The last step is the payment of supplier. So where can you get information about your suppliers? So basically, you can get information about your suppliers by basically analyzing the market condition. Analyzing the market condition, you are going to the market and trying to check one by one the various suppliers that are outside the organization. The other thing, you can get directives. Where are you getting directives from? You are getting directives from your managers. So basically, they can direct you to source from a particular supplier. The other source is the e-sourcing. E-sourcing is the use of internet to get your suppliers. So basically, you can come up with a system that allows you to have a database for your various suppliers. And once you need your supplier, you just click a button and you're able to get your various suppliers. The other thing is locating your suppliers. Locating your suppliers, you can either locate your suppliers using the World Wide Web of that supplier, or basically you can go to the internet and try to locate your suppliers, or you can even call the supplier contacts. The other thing, you are doing a supplier assessment. A supplier assessment, basically, you are trying to check the suppliers who have been delivering to your organization and trying to assess their performance. And after doing that assessment, basically, you can do the rating of your suppliers. We have other things like research institutions where you can get information from the organizations. For example, institutions like Kipps College or other universities who basically have products that they want to produce. So who is the right supplier? So you need to understand the right supplier. A right supplier is a supplier who delivers on time. This is a supplier who is able to bring items whenever you need them. The other thing is a right supplier is a supplier who provides consistent quality of materials. So you must be always consistent. Consistent is being persistent. The other thing is the supplier who has a good financial record. Basically, the financial stability of that supplier must be okay. As a right supplier is a supplier who gives material with a good price as negotiated during the purchasing procedure. A supplier who gives you the right price is a very important supplier. You know, sometimes when you are negotiating the price, you can agree on a certain price, but at the end of the day, the supplier can decide to change the price, and this can affect even your profit margin. So the supplier that keeps his word is a very good supplier. The other thing is a supplier who provides technical support. Is the supplier able to give you after sales service? Once you buy a particular item, let's say you are buying a machine, is the supplier able to service that machine for you? So it's very important when you're choosing a supplier, that supplier must always give you what is called a technical support of the product you've bought. The other thing is a good supplier or a right supplier is a supplier who provides goods and services back end, e.g. transportation, installation and after sales service, and that we've talked about. The other thing that you need to understand about a right supplier is a supplier who keeps the purchasing department informed on the progress of the order. So a good supplier must always give feedback, and once feedback, remember in communication, when we are talking about communication, there is always a message and there is a receiver of that message. Once you receive the message, it's always good to give feedback. So a good supplier is a supplier who always updates you on the progress of your order so that you don't have issues to do with delays, or you are supposed to communicate to your customers. And the last one is a supplier who is responsive to the organization needs, and that supplier must always look at the various specifications in that organization. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening for this class. So our next class is going to be about evaluation of suppliers. So I do encourage you guys to always log in and be able to access these notes. Thank you and welcome once again.